The ship didn't crash, it burrowed. Like a spear from the heavens, the Tirval hunting pod split the dawn sky and drove deep into the base of the Olympic Mountains, vaporizing soil and fusing bedrock into glass as it vanished beneath the trees. A muted tremor rolled through the forest minutes later, mistaken by locals for another minor quake. Nothing more. But Staff Sergeant Mason Rourke, 34, retired from active service and never retired from instinct, knew better. He was already moving before the tremor finished. "I'm picking up ionized metals," said Scout, his aerial drone companion, circling above the treetops. "Impact signature matches nothing local. Certainly not a weather balloon." "Of course not," Mason muttered, lacing up his boots. "Nothing ever lands in Black Hollow unless it wants to stay dead." The trailhead was a misty throat of mud and pine, curling into a valley that had never been properly mapped. Too many magnetic anomalies, too many rumors. Hunters stayed clear. Rangers only patrolled the perimeter. Except for Mason. He checked the signal again. Still no satellite bounce. His uplink to Central Command was jammed. No surprise there either. The last time a black signal hit this zone, it involved a cryptid-sized bear hybrid that ate through a titanium cage. Scout dipped lower. Still no visuals. Thick canopy. But the local wildlife's gone quiet. No birdsong, no movement. "That's your warning," Mason said. "Something's hunting." 20 minutes in, he found the first body. A juvenile black wolf, eyes clouded over, ribs cracked open. The strange part wasn't the kill, it was the precision. Each organ had been removed along clean lines. The corpse had been studied, not eaten. Mason crouched beside it. "You seeing this?" Scout buzzed overhead. "That's not a mountain lion. That's surgery. Or something learning how we work." He stood slowly. Deep fog rolled between the trees, clinging to bark and earth like smoke. He drew his sidearm, loaded with custom tracker rounds. Not for killing. For marking. If whatever was out here bled, he'd find a way to make it bleed again. As daylight thinned through the tree canopy, Mason reached the slope above a narrow gorge. There, dangling 15 feet off the ground, was a hiker, stripped, strung upside down by his ankles, skin partially flayed in geometric lines. Mason's jaw tightened. This wasn't animal. This wasn't madness. This was ritual. The body swayed gently. Beneath it, the dirt had been cleared into a spiral. Burn marks at the edges. Landing site? No, claiming site. He circled cautiously. His boots crunched something brittle. Teeth. Human teeth. Set in a line. "Scout," he said. "Mark this as a hostile zone. We're not dealing with something native. Already done. You want backup?" "No," Mason said. "Too slow, too far. And if this thing has eyes, backup's just bait." The first sighting came an hour later. A clearing opened beneath an outcrop of dead trees. The air smelled of ozone and ash. Mason moved silently, crouched low. Then movement. A shimmer. Like oil-bending light. Then two eyes, too many pupils, not enough white, opened against the bark of a fallen log. For 1 second, man and alien regarded each other. Karzul didn't move. Neither did Mason. Then the alien slowly rose, uncloaking, not in a burst of light, but like a shadow remembering it had a form. 7 feet tall. Broad. Chitin plates over muscle. One arm longer than the other, ending in a hooked claw with surgical articulation. Its head tilted slightly, watching him. Testing his nerves. Mason raised his pistol, finger resting just outside the trigger. "I don't know what you are," he said, steady and slow. "But you're not the first thing that's crawled out of the sky thinking this place is easy meat." The alien stepped back into the trees, vanishing as smoothly as it had appeared. Scout whispered over the channel. "You still alive?" "Barely." "What did you see?" Mason holstered the pistol. "A soldier. Not a beast. And not just here to kill." At sunset, Mason returned to his ranger station. It wasn't much: steel siding, a small generator, satellite dish fried by the jam. Inside, he opened a locked panel and pulled out a rifle wrapped in an old field jacket. Still oiled. Still ready? On his desk, he laid out hand-drawn maps of Black Hollow, marking choke points, natural traps, mineral vents, elevation shifts. "I want you watching thermal," he told Scout. "Every second. It hunts at dusk." Scout hovered near. "Do you think it's here for us?" "No. It didn't even flinch when I pulled a gun." "Then what?" "It's not here to learn us. It's here to test us." That night, the forest sang a new silence. The second hiker's body was never found. Only her boot. Inside it, placed carefully, was a pine cone, cleaned, hollowed, and filled with wolf blood. A message. Mason stood at the tree line, staring into the void between the branches. He didn't need to see it to know it was there. Watching. Waiting. Predators didn't always strike fast. Sometimes they studied. Mason lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "You think we're weak," he said aloud. "You came here to collect something. Maybe a skull. Maybe a trophy. But let me tell you something." He exhaled the smoke toward the dark. "You're not the only thing that hunts." Dawn arrived like a warning. Blood smeared Mason's cabin door, not painted, not splattered, but brushed, as if a massive hand had dragged it from edge to edge with deliberate purpose. A line. A mark. Scout hovered outside, lens twitching. "It knows where you sleep." Mason didn't answer. He stood shirtless in the cold air, scars over his ribs catching morning light, cigarette dangling from his mouth. He stared at the red smear, then at the forest beyond, jaw clenched. "I'm done waiting." Back inside, Mason opened the footlocker beneath his bunk and unlatched a secondary case. Inside, old gear, marked and worn. Claymore mines, motion beacons, flare tripwires, a coil of monofilament wire sharp enough to cut bone. Not government issue anymore, off-the-record relics from wars that weren't supposed to happen. "You going loud?" Scout asked, scanning from the window. "No," Mason said. "I'm going smart." At midday, the first trap went live, a pressure-triggered flashbang buried at the edge of the southern ridge. He didn't expect it to kill anything. He just wanted to see how the thing moved when surprised. Over the next 5 hours, Mason wove a network through the forest, a grid of primitive trip lines, snare pits, distraction lures using pig carcasses laced with high-pitched audio signals only predators could hear. He laid the terrain like a chessboard. Every choke point led to another, every high point overlooked a funnel. "You know this won't kill it," Scout said, hovering beside him as he buried another line. "It doesn't have to," Mason said. "It just has to piss it off." At 1,600 hours, the perimeter alert chirped. Mason froze. Then boom. The flashbang went off, followed by a sharp, high-pitched roar, not animal, not human. Wet, low, furious. Scout's thermal feed flicked to life. "Target is approaching from the south. Fast. On all fours. It's adapting posture dynamically." Mason sprinted to the next outpost, a hollowed stump with a clear view of the ridge. Through his scope, he saw the alien. It moved like no creature on Earth. Leaner now. Less armored. The plates from before were gone, shed like a reptile's skin. In their place, smoother organic layers, twitching as they flexed. Karzul had absorbed something, bare muscle, wolf tendon, something brutal. Its body moved in harmony with the terrain now, bending with branches instead of breaking them. Mason whispered, "You're learning." As if hearing him, the creature paused mid-step. Then it turned, stared straight at him through the scope. "Shit!" Mason ducked. A split second later, a serrated bone dart struck the tree next to his head. "Scout," he breathed. "We've lost the element of surprise." "No kidding." They fell back to Station 2, a concealed trench beneath the rocks. Scout patched into backup comms. "Transmission confirmed. A search party entered the zone this morning. Civilians. 5 people. They're heading right toward the kill path." Mason cursed under his breath. They'll last 10 minutes if he sees them. ETA? 7 minutes, Mason said, grabbing a rifle. But I'm not there to rescue them. I'm there to slow him down. The forest erupted in chaos. Branches snapped, screams echoed, Scout's voice fed Mason fragments of thermal pings, humans scattering, the predator giving chase. Mason reached the ridge just in time to see the creature grab one of the hikers, a young man, and slam him into a tree with spine-cracking force. The other screamed. Mason didn't hesitate. He raised his rifle and fired, an incendiary round, point-blank into the alien's back. Flame burst across its shoulder. Karzel let out a furious bellow and threw the hiker's corpse at Mason with impossible strength. It missed, but the impact shattered a tree beside him. Smoke filled the air. Mason ran into it, pulling 2 civilians out by their jackets. Scout's voice followed in bursts. It's circling. Pattern unclear. Adapting to your timing. Let it come. Mason set another trap behind him, a charge set to blow if the ground shook a certain way. He didn't need to be faster than the alien. He just needed to be smarter. Back at the cabin, the survivors were secured inside the generator shed. Mason locked them in, gave them a shotgun, and told them to shoot anything that hissed. Scout hovered beside him. You're bleeding. I bled before. You need help. We all do. That night, the air changed. The forest wasn't quiet anymore, it was holding its breath. Mason stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the gorge. His traps had been sprung, his supplies were low, and Scout was damaged, half his lens shattered from the debris. He stared down the black valley. At the bottom, just visible in the moonlight, was the alien ship, buried, clawed open, its beacon core exposed. A soft pulse lit the trees every 5 seconds. I found its transmitter, Scout said. Power spike started after your last hit. It's calling home. Mason stared. How long before someone hears it? Unknown. But we don't get around to if they do. He picked up his rifle. Then we finish this now. Inside the cabin, he drew the final plan. Not just a trap, a slaughterhouse. Using the terrain, he'd channeled the alien through a volcanic vent path laced with flammable minerals. Unstable, narrow, with only one way out. He'd set a burn line, lead the creature through, then drop the ceiling using planted thermite charges and falling steel rebar. It wouldn't be clean. It would be ugly, violent, personal. He looked at Scout, then at the reflection in the cracked window. Dirt smeared, bloodied, haunted, but still standing. You thought we were prey, Mason whispered. He turned toward the forest. You're about to learn why we aren't. The cave mouth yawned like a wound in the mountain, jagged, sulphurous, and ancient. Wind moaned through its cracked edges, thick with the stench of iron and rot. Deep inside, unseen vents belched heat from some buried magma vein, turning the walls slick with condensation and blood-colored moss. Mason Rourke knelt just outside, sweat dripping down his temple despite the cold air. He checked the ignition charges one last time, twin thermite blocks wired to collapse the ceiling and ignite a chain reaction in the unstable rock face. Behind him, Scout floated with a cracked lens and a weak battery. You've got one shot at this, the drone said, voice glitching slightly. I only need one, Mason replied. He stood, holstered his sidearm, and pulled the last piece from his pack, a modified audio lure, tuned to mimic Karzel's own vocal patterns. Spliced from recordings, filtered through the ship's tech, and now amplified. Mason had fed it a message in the alien's own tongue. Come prove you are the apex. He placed it on a boulder at the cave entrance, and stepped back. Minutes passed. Then the forest hushed again. As if even the trees were bracing. A sound emerged, not a growl, not a screech, a bone-deep rumble, like tectonic plates shifting. Mason stiffened. Scout's light turned red. Visual confirmed. Target incoming. Fast. Ground speed, 28 miles per hour. Branches exploded in the distance. Trees snapped. Mason retreated silently into the cave's shadows. Then it appeared. Karzel entered like a myth, eyes glowing faintly, muscles rippling beneath smooth, adaptive flesh streaked with hardened plates and fresh scars. The wound from Mason's incendiary still smoked, but the alien moved with purpose. No limping. No hesitation. It stopped beside the lure, tilting its head as the distorted voice repeated, "Come prove you are the apex." And then, it laughed. A twisted, corrupted mimicry of Mason's voice followed. "You adapt. We become." It stepped into the cave. Mason waited until the alien was 2 lengths deep, then 3. He triggered the first flare. A wall of fire ignited behind Karzul, cutting off the exit. The alien spun, hissed, and turned back, only to find Mason standing at the far end, rifle raised, breath steady. "Welcome to Earth," Mason said. He fired. The first round struck the creature's chest. The second tore through its knee. It roared and charged. Mason dropped the rifle, drew 2 magnesium flares, and ran toward it. At the last second, he dove sideways. Karzul lunged, collided with a weakened column, and the ceiling above cracked. Mason slammed the detonator. Boom! The cave exploded in a thunderous collapse. Flame rolled through the tunnel. Shards of glowing stone and steel cascaded like a falling starfield. The roar of the alien vanished beneath the deafening crush. Dust. Smoke. Silence. Mason lay against the wall, coughing blood, vision swimming. "Status?" he wheezed. Scout's damaged voice replied faintly. "Life signs minimal. But target, still moving." Mason forced himself up. His leg was broken. His shoulder dislocated. But he dragged himself forward, through the dust, toward the ship. The alien vessel was grotesque, organic hulls fused with machinery, a biomechanical heart still pulsing. Inside, the beacon core blinked. 047. 046. "Scout," Mason grunted. "Plug in. I'm not built for." "Try." Scout latched onto the uplink port. Sparks flew. The beacon's pulse faltered. Signal disrupted. Not neutralized. Mason looked toward the tree line. Karzul's silhouette emerged, wounded, one arm gone, but still standing. Bleeding. Staggering. He was coming for the beacon. For his proof. Mason limped forward, stood between the creature and the ship. "You lost," he said. The alien stepped closer, dragging its claw. "No. You are alone." "No," Mason said. "I'm human." And he hurled the last thermite grenade directly at the beacon. The blast vaporized the core. The ship pulsed once, then collapsed inward, crumpling like a dying insect. Karzul howled, lunged at Mason, and collapsed before reaching him. The forest stood still again. Smoke curled into the canopy. Distant thunder rumbled, but nothing moved. Mason fell to one knee. His chest ached. Bones cracked. But he was alive. Scout hovered beside him, flickering. "You're going to bleed out," the drone said quietly. "Maybe," Mason whispered. "But at least I'll die knowing one thing." "What's that?" "We're not prey." 2 weeks later. The file surfaced on a Dominion War Council display, pulled from the last black box recording auto-transmitted by the alien ship's dying memory node. It played only once. A wounded human in front of the ship's wreckage, bloodied, staring into the lens. His voice. "To the next one who thinks Earth is an easy hunt, come see what it cost the last guy. We don't care what you are. We don't care what you've killed. If you step on this planet with a blade in your hand, we will break it. And you." The council chamber was quiet. Then a voice from the back. "Shall we purge the coordinates?" The general nodded slowly. "Earth goes on the black list. Do not engage."